Hi everyone, welcome to day 3 of our Wild Power Retreat, where over 10 days we are exploring how you can enhance your vitality and creativity and leadership through the power and the magic of menstrual cycle awareness this year. Welcome, Natalie K Martin. Thank you so much for being with us today and for making the time to join us on the retreat.
Oh, it's an absolute honor. Thank you. I'm super stoked to be here.
Can't wait to get started. The conversation we're having today is all about how to track and honor the intelligence of your body through the menstrual cycle. So it's such a rich topic. And we'll also look at cycle-inspired movement, how we can be adapting our movement practice and the way we flow through the cycle month, because we live in a non-cyclical world, and which is constantly telling us to push our bodies, to push through, to go faster, to go bigger. And working with the cycle can be such a powerful way to swim upstream against that momentum and come home to the intelligence that's here, which is actually the medicine that our world needs pretty much all the time. So Natalie is a period and menstrual cycle coach. She's an author. She made a really interesting transition. She writes about this on her website. From a corporate career in London through to being a yoga teacher, and now to supporting people with periods to find balance and the power in their cycles. And especially, we were just talking about your passion is the premenstruum, which is where I am right now. So really excited to have this conversation with you. We're going to start with a cycle check-in. So for the people that are listening, just take a moment to track what day of the cycle you're on, and see if you can find 3 words that distill the experience that you're having. And if you're following along with your Wild Power journal, then there's space to write in the journal. And Natalie, I'd love to hear from you. Could you share your cycle day and 3 words that sort of clarify how you're doing with it?
Yeah, sure. I'm on cycle day 7, so in the spring. I'm feeling fresh. I'm feeling multi-focused, if that's even a word, and playful.
Oh, I love it. Fresh, multi-focused and playful. Yeah. We are going to pull off some kind of miracle here, because we have 30 minutes to get into this really rich topic. So I'm going to move us along straight away, because I would love to go into multi-focused with you in a spring. But this retreat is all about setting ourselves up for this year of cycle awareness. Could you kick us off by sharing maybe a couple of the key ways that cycle awareness has enhanced your life, enhanced your vitality, your creativity, your leadership?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, as an overarching thing, it's just made life feel easy, as in I don't have to kind of feel like I'm the one who's responsible for everything, and that I always have to make things happen. It's allowed me just to trust in my body and trust in what's happening in my life. And that's obviously reduced a lot of grabbing and stress. So as an overarching theme, I would say it's just made things a little bit easier. It's definitely given me more energy as well. I used to have a lot of burnout around my inner summer. And now I have, as you've seen today already, a lot of energy just from learning how to rest and how to go with the flow of what my body is asking for at any given time, instead of squashing it all into one particular place or trying to do the same thing all the time. And I just haven't been able to stop sharing it. So it's crept into my leadership style, because it just can't not, it's like you can't hold on to this secret once you know it. So it's definitely just made me a lot more all-rounded, I would say. I feel a lot more whole. Yeah.
How about creatively as an author? Do you follow your cycle as you're writing?
Do you know what? I actually haven't until now. With the last book, I just made sure that I wasn't writing while I was bleeding. But this new book, I literally started it yesterday on day 6, and I had such a strong urge. It was one of the reasons why I needed to really break on this last bleed, because I knew that this was when I wanted to start the new book, was in my inner spring. And it will be interesting to see how it pans out. I mean, I've got a very, very tight deadline of 28th of February. So I don't think I will be able to really plan it the way that I would like to, using my cycle. But having said that, now that I know the peaks and valleys of my energy and where I tend to feel most creative, I think I'll probably write chapters according to where I am. More playful stuff will be now. The more kind of raw stuff will probably be in my premenstruum. So yeah.
Wow, the more raw stuff in the premenstruum. I love that. We should have a conversation on the other side of this to see how this goes. It'd be really interesting.
Absolutely.
So let's look at how cycle awareness has changed your relationship to your body, because before you came into cycle awareness, you were very connected to your body, a yoga practitioner, yoga teacher. How has your cycle awareness practice influenced that or helped you connect to the intelligence of your body?
Yeah, it's funny because I used to think I was very in touch with my body because of the yoga practice and teaching, but I really wasn't, I think, because I just never connected to that part of me. I never connected to actually what was happening with me cycle wise. And so I think it's definitely, the yoga and everything definitely helped me to start to tune into the breath and to feel sensation in my body. But cycle awareness it's a strange kind of almost intangible layer of my body, or not even my body, my being, that kind of informs how I breathe and how I move. Because obviously yoga, for the most part, it's very led and guided, and especially the kind of yoga that I teach and enjoy, you're told when to breathe, when to inhale, when to exhale, when to move. And it's a different kind of level of embodiment when you're just tuning into actually your own rhythm according to where you are. So in terms of how I feel my body and how I connect to myself, it's like another world completely. And I didn't think that was possible after all of the yoga work and the breath work and the meditations and all that kind of thing. But it feels a lot deeper, or finely tuned, let's say. Yeah.
I'd love to take a walk through the cycle and explore how the world might suggest we move at that phase, but how actually it makes more sense for us to move so that we can be closer to our experience, more intimately connected to what we're actually experiencing. And it feels like a good place to start is in a winter, in the menstrual phase, because that's probably, for the people that are listening, the phase where they might experience the most challenge when it comes to stopping and resting, or adapting the way that the world wants them to move to their own body's needs. And you were just sharing before we started actually about how you had a wonderful restful bleed this last time. So maybe could you walk us into how you move in your menstrual phase, and then what you share with your students and what you think could be beneficial?
Yeah, sure. So for me, the most that I do in my menstrual phase now is walking my dog, walking around my house from room to room, and restorative yoga. So restorative really became my go-to in the menstrual phase because I mean, it's just so juicy. It's so yummy. It's, for me, it's when I practice it and also when I teach it, it's very quiet. So I don't speak once I'm in positions when I'm teaching it. And I don't really like to follow classes where the teacher is constantly talking. For me, I want to get into the position and I just want to lay there and have my alarm go off when it's time to move again. And that for me has just been a huge revelation because it's so quiet. And I think that the menstrual phase of the cycle, we have so much insight and knowledge that can come out, but if you're constantly being distracted by a teacher who's talking all the time, or whatever's going on, you can't really hear it. So for me, it's absolute quiet. And this cycle that has just started, this last bleed, I did, I think, about 45 minutes. I also had some cacao, so I was drinking some cacao in between. And I had such a menstrual migraine before then, and it just melted afterwards. So for me, restorative, it's, people look at it and they're like, you're not really doing anything. You are. Your body is resting. And I find that if I do it before day 3, then I tend to get the most out of it. And already by day 4, I'm starting to feel like maybe I want to stretch a little bit, but I still will incorporate some restorative in there. That's, for me, that's what I call temple time. It's non-negotiable. It's me just lying on my props with some incense, and that can be very difficult for people because it's so still, it's so quiet. Your mind can travel to places where there might be lots of things coming up in there, but for me as a student and as a teacher, I always just encourage, just let your mind go. Sleep if you want to sleep. Dream if you want to dream. Yeah, so that's how I move on my menstrual phase.
For people who might have a lot of momentum going, especially people who are really creative in the inner autumn phase, or they've got a lot of caring that they're doing in their life, or they've got a lot of responsibility and life's moving fast. I'm asking for a friend here. I find it hard to slow down into that, and if I kind of go, stop, my mind just plays crazy tricks, which I think can happen for a lot of people in that void space between the autumn and the bleed. Have you got some advice for how to wind it down, get to that rest?
For me, I think I would say the easiest entry, in my opinion, is always at the place where it feels easiest anyway. So for people who just find it hard to wind down generally, if you want to start doing some restorative yoga, do it at a time when you feel really crap. So if you've got really bad cramps or you just feel really tired, even if it might just literally be 5 minutes in child's pose, it doesn't have to be this like hour-long thing. So physically speaking, I would say try to do it at the time when you really feel the worst anyway, because at that point you're probably willing to try anything. And
advice.
And when it comes to the mind, the first thing to really understand is that you're not trying to quiet your mind down. It's not possible to do that. Yes, you might be able to meditate easier in that kind of void space or in your menstrual phase. We're not trying to stop you from thinking. It's really about just giving your mind a bit of space. So one of the things that I like to do is have a pen and paper nearby. And, if I'm sitting in meditation or if I'm doing restorative or whatever, and I've got things that are coming up, just write them down. Doesn't matter if it's like a creative idea or oh gosh, I've got to remember to do this, or, just a random thought. If it's stopping you from really dropping down, then just take a moment, write it down, and just think of it as literally plucking this stuff out of your head and emptying, quote unquote, your mind, so that you can just sit for, it might only be like a minute, but a minute of quiet is better than no minute at all. So that's where I always start with people who are really struggling to kind of slow down, to literally help your mind by just taking it out.
I love that. So speaking of a minute of quiet, I'm thinking about someone who might be at work. It's day 28 that suddenly becomes day 1. They've got a meeting that they need to be part of, or someone who's parenting or taking care of a relative, or many things can be happening on day 1. Could you share some ideas for how we could sort of hold ourselves through that in the menstrual moment, or how we can adapt the way we're just moving through the world?
In those instances, I would say prolong your toilet break. So, if it's just becoming day 1, instead of, rushing in, putting your tampon, your cup, whatever it is, like literally just sit for a minute longer if you can. I mean, most of us can. and you know, a minute is totally doable. And then from that point on, for me, it's about cultivating slowness in the body. I also work part-time in a cafe, and I've been in that situation where it's a busy weekend and it's like, oh God, walk slower, move slower. So do you have to kind of, you know, be in a bit of a frenzy and gathering things from your desk? And, you know, because when we're rushing, we're creating stress in the body and the mind anyway, and we're usually actually slowing ourselves down by rushing.
True.
You know, but just moving more mindfully, literally just the way that you pick up your phone, or the way that you drink your drink while you're in that meeting, or walking from your desk to the meeting room. It's, you know, it's about just slowing down as much as you can inside, because obviously in those situations you can't just drop everything and go into your period cave, as lovely as it would be. And that's something that one day when the world is right, we'll all be able to do that. But yeah, that's what I do, because I am that person. I'm very quick generally, and I will, like, you know, I walk, I live in a Bavarian village. I walk like I'm still in the middle of London usually. And when I'm transitioning in that void space, and when I'm bleeding, especially if I can't tap out and rest, then it's like, okay, just literally slow it down, cut the walking speed by a third, for example.
I love that. Thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking, like what little practical things can we do? And I also just want to share a vision for the future here, which is from one of our graduates of the Menstruality Leadership Programme. She's a good friend of mine, Adele Bates, who's a teacher in, you know, mainstream secondary schools. And she actually began to bring her cycle awareness to work. And so she'd say, I'm on day 1 today, you know, in the middle of her presentations to her class. So she's totally rocking her cycle awareness, and she's saying, you know, so I'm going to be quieter, or, you know, she just, I can't think of the exact example, but she gives examples to her students, and yeah, so that's where we can get to. Yeah.
I just wanted to add as well, if there is anyone out there who is a personal trainer, yoga teacher, doing anything where they are being in class and leading people movement wise, because it's difficult if you've got a mixed group of people, you can't, you know, tell everyone to do the same thing. For me, when I'm bleeding and I'm teaching, I'm moving at a very slow pace, and I will tell my students, I'm bleeding, I'm not demonstrating very much, or depending on which class it is, if I've got the agency to, it will be as slow a class as possible within the framework of what that class is. So if it's a flow class, the flows will be much slower, the breathing will be much deeper. So you can also incorporate the way that you need to move according to where you are in your cycle with how you show up to work and lead people through classes and things.
And this is how we bring more sanity into the world, because our world is cyclical, the human world not so much, or many parts of the human culture. So this is how we can quietly have this wild power, as Shani would call it, the wild power revolution of bringing everyone into cyclicity. Thank you. Let's move to inner spring, which is, I find it my blind spot in the cycle. Like, I often lose track of my cycle tracking in these days. And yeah, could you share about how our movement practice can support us to stay connected to the wisdom of our bodies as we're coming up out of menstruation and starting to feel the via positiva rising?
Yeah, for sure. For me, it has two sides. If it's a cycle like right now where I've really rested, then I'm feeling full of beans, and it's also difficult for me to keep track of where I'm at in my cycle, because I'm just like, ooh. So in those times, for me, it's I move around a lot. I dance a lot when I'm at home, and I have playlists according to each cycle of where I'm at. And when I'm in that kind of very bouncy, everything's just like wonderful, for me, the way that I check in is in those moments of you know, dancing and singing to, I have a pop playlist that I listen to, like 90s, 2000s pop. And for me, linking it with music is it makes it happen automatically, because I'm very aware, like, oh wow, I feel so good, like I can feel I need to dance and move my shoulders a bit, or I want to put some makeup on. And it's a very strange way of linking the two, but for me that's when I do my cycle check-in in the morning when I'm getting ready, because I really realize that I've got like just so much energy, and it's completely the opposite to how it was a few days ago. It's like, very apparent. But in cycles where I don't get to rest that much when I'm bleeding, the transition can be quite rough. And in those times, it's literally the complete opposite. And I feel the need to actually make my body move. And so in that way, for me, I talk a lot about yoga because that's the movement practice that I tend to do the most. But in those times, I will go for almost like a yin kind of practice, where it's allowing me to stretch and open my body, but still giving me space to connect to, like, for example, my inner thighs today they're just really tight, no idea why. And in yoga this morning, it was a moment where I was like, gosh, I feel like I haven't really stretched properly. Why would that be? When did I last get on my mat? What day am I now on? It's just this kind of actually what's happening in your body, and asking, why is it like that? And for me, that usually brings me back to, okay, I'm in this point in my cycle, and this is what I've been doing or not in the last few days. So yeah, it's for me, it's they're both different ways to get there, via music and also through the movement practice. But in the end, both of them are bringing me into, how does my body feel right now? How's my energy level? And then kind of investigating it from there.
I think what you're describing is how cycle awareness can be such a great way of working this muscle of taking awareness outside and turning it in. And then we go back and then we turn it in. It's sort of developing this capacity to just keep being with ourselves, being with ourselves, being intimate with ourselves.
Yeah, so important. Yeah.
Let's, if you've got playlists, we've got playlists too in the show notes for this. We should drop in links to some playlists, sure. if you can. We've got an Inner Spring playlist, and I also wanted to point people out to your Instagram feed, where you often move on your videos. It really inspires me, to see you moving, because you move in such an authentic way. You're just so alive and real, and it often inspires me. So I'll be like, what's Natalie doing today? Like, inspire me to like move with my cycle. So go over and visit Natalie's Instagram. It's beautiful.
Really beautiful.
Thank you. Summer. What can we say about summer? I mean, you mentioned this, often people burn out in summer because there's so much energy. And I guess this could be the phase when your movement is more aligned with the fitness world and the yoga world and the dance world that wants to like push and express. How can we take care of ourselves in summer?
Yeah, for me, summer is like spring. It's a two-pronged kind of way. So in a cycle where I feel very, very good, then that will be the time where I naturally feel like I want to just move. I want to do some fitness or higher intensity yoga. I don't have any time for meditation usually. I find it quite difficult to sit. And it's also, I dance a lot here as well. And there's this kind of, okay, I feel good. Let me do this kind of like higher intensity movement, but it has a very different quality. For me, it's already getting into the how I feel in the premenstrual phase, this kind of almost very sensual, and just being there because it feels good. And I would say when you're in that place in your inner summer where you're feeling good, you're feeling fine, then really just do whatever your body wants from you. If you want to go running, if you want to go swimming, because it's all about, in my opinion, I call my inner summer archetype the queen. It's about doing what feels good for you. So, if you want to go hike a mountain, go hike a mountain. On the flip side, if you want to just do nothing or do a restorative yoga or something very quiet, then do that. Because although it's less movement, it's still, again, connecting to what's going on inside, and that can feel so luscious. If you're someone who burns out at summer, like I tend to when I'm not paying attention, then I actually treat that like inner winter. And I will just, well, I have to just rest, because I don't have the energy, I don't have the drive, no creativity, no motivation, no nothing. I'm just, the worst dog mum in the world, the worst girlfriend in the world. I don't want to do anything. And so I treat that then as a day or two of inner winter, and I do exactly what I would do in my inner winter, in my inner summer. And that's usually when I've worked with people who have that tendency to burn out, at least until you start to get to feel like you're in balance again, I would automatically treat that as an inner winter, even if it's just for a day, just to let your body kind of rest, because there's a lot going on at that time for the body to handle hormonally. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think there's also, and you hinted to this, there's this gateway of pleasure here in the inner summer, and that can be a massive gateway for vitality, like for health and creativity. And it's probably the easiest phase of the cycle to actually, I don't know, sometimes it's inner autumn for me too, but to really embody our sensual side and start to let some of the wildness that's in us be expressed through movement.
Yeah. And I think that's it is a gateway in. It's definitely been a gateway in for me. And moving away from movement, but also just massaging the skin and pelvic steaming and just things that feel like, oh, that could be nice. Eating food that you like, it's whatever is landing you in the body. And also just stretching. Like I find that at that time in my cycle, I will just sit and stretch a lot, just because it just feels nice.
Yes, just do what feels nice, like permission. I think inner summer can really give us permission for that. Again, it's medicine for us and for everybody.
Absolutely.
I really want, the time is ticking, I really want us to talk about inner autumn, especially because it's your passion and it's where I am right now, and I'm noticing myself wanting to really move, sort of unleash myself a bit, which is probably the same for a lot of people at this phase. And it's also a phase where we can be crippled by the inner critic. It can be a phase where shadow arises for us, and there's and it can also be immensely creative for a lot of people too. So how do you play with movement in this phase of the cycle?
I used to come to this phase of the cycle in I want to do yin yoga kind of vibe. I want to almost be kind of tortured a little bit, because I can feel there's so much in there, and I don't know how to kind of provide space for it. And yin yoga can be such a good way of bringing things to the surface. Having said that, lately I've been leaning a lot more into dancing and just, again, putting on one of those playlists and just moving. And I appreciate that that's not so easy for everyone, because inner critic and, how am I supposed to move and what should I look like and all of that kind of thing. At that time in my cycle, unless I'm feeling a little bit like the showgirl that wants to record it to upload it, and that's a very spontaneous thing, I will usually close the curtains, no reflections in the room, even maybe have the lights on very low, and just put on music and sit there and then just see, and just maybe take a neck circle. I find I'm very partial to hip circles at that time. So, and then there's songs where I just thrash around and and go quite wild. But I think the premenstrual phase can be so difficult, because we know that we're annoyed and angry and frustrated and critical, but some, in my experience, and having coached people, it can be really difficult to pinpoint actually what is it. And intuitive movement works so well because you're listening to your body's own intelligence. Your body is telling you, I want to stretch my fingers wide, so you stretch your fingers wide, as opposed to a yin yoga class or anything else where you're being told to move your body in a certain way. And I find that helps to kind of also create the space in my emotional body and my mind to then get a little bit more of a grasp on actually what is happening, where am I feeling so contracted, and also sounding as well, like actually using sound at that time, if you can, if you're in a in a living situation where you can, you know, scream and not have neighbors think that something's happening to you, or you know, incorporate your children or your partner or whatever, just like put on some music and you know, it's
my friend does it when she's making the smoothie with her kid, like, yeah.
Yeah, it's, for me, an intuitive movement is the thing that I go for the most, because it's what feels most natural, and it feels like that's what the most authentic expression is. And it's also, it can be very sensual as well. And a big journey for me has been reclaiming my sensuality and sexuality. And so actually just moving in that way has allowed me to find the confidence to upload those videos that you're mentioning, because I never used to do that before. Never. And that's all come from intuitive movement in my premenstruum. So yeah.
I love this, because when you described, you know, how does my body want to move, my hands want to flex like this, we're developing a relationship of trust. I mean, we're not really broken into fragmented parts, but it's sort of between our mind and our body, like I'm listening, I'm receiving, I'm following.
Yeah.
And that feels like the foundation of so much healing.
Yeah. I mean, we're taught to distrust our bodies because they're irrational and no one understands them, and you know, like you it's just this big mystery, and so we're taught to not trust the body, I think, but I always think the body is talking all the time. We just have to learn how to understand the language and how to listen to it. And for me, those moments of almost giving over control to your body and saying, okay, move, kind of allows that to happen. So it might not happen in one cycle, it might not happen in 5, but you know, just little pockets of it can build up over time. So yeah.
Oh, beautiful. You know, I could keep talking for a long time, but we have a quick fire round to look into your, you know, your own cycle awareness practice. So quick fire, number 1, how do you track your cycle?
I use my planner. I use the Do Less Planner by Kate Northrup, and that's helping me a lot at the moment. So and also using Kindara for my fam tracking.
That's an app?
Yeah, sorry. Kindara, just to record my temperatures and track my ovulation and so on. Yeah.
Brilliant. How do you take care of yourself on day 1 of your cycle?
Lying on the sofa, watching Netflix, napping, and at the moment not eating very much. I'm not having much appetite, so just resting, watching terrible TV.
What are you watching at the moment?
I don't have anything. I just finished this astrological guide to broken hearts or something. It was actually pretty good. I binged it on during my period, so this last round. Yeah.
Love it. Okay, you're premenstrual and life throws you a curveball. What's the very first thing you do?
Get annoyed.
Yeah, been there.
Get annoyed, and then, okay, what do we do? Yeah.
You're with it.
I'm with it. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, such sweet permission. I'm going to take that permission today on my day 24. What inner season are you most enjoying at the moment? Final one.
I'd say my premenstruum. Yeah. Or inner spring. They feel both the same, but just with different flavors. So yeah, I'm enjoying them both at the moment. Yeah.
I want to hear more about that, but later we will have another conversation, Natalie, for sure, won't we? Could you yeah, I want to invite everyone actually listening to sort of find their own golden nugget from this conversation. You know, the one thing that really landed with like, oh yes, I'm going to work on that, or the one thing that was most inspiring. And there's space in the journal for those of you who are following with the journal to write that down. But yeah, Natalie, is there something that you want to share to sort of summarize the conversation, or any final words?
Yeah, I think, just take every day as it comes, because I think, especially if you're new to cycle tracking, there can be this tendency to like, I want to have this perfect cycle, and I know that I should feel like this at that time, so I'm going to behave like this at that time. But actually just literally take each day as it comes and keep checking in with the body, because that's going to inform what's happening. And the moment that you try to act a certain way, even if your body isn't feeling in that way, is the moment you go against the cycle. So yeah, really being in it as much as possible, and listening to your body, your cycle, as opposed to, it's that big red rule, isn't it? Like, what your body is saying is true, not what I'm saying.
What your body is saying is true. That's such a beautiful way to wrap up this conversation. Natalie, thank you. I feel like in a really short space of time, you've walked us so deeply into each in the season, and I feel really inspired to go and like play with my own movement in different ways. And thank you so much. I can really feel the depth of your practice, and I appreciate everything you've brought to us today. Thank you.
No, you're so welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to carry on with the Wild Power Retreat in 2 days' time with session 4, which is how menstrual cycle awareness can reduce stress and create balance. And that's with Nicole Jardim, who's a period and hormone expert and the author of Fix Your Period. We're going to be looking at how to honor your cycle at work, how to manage stress, and how to set yourself up with foundations to lead. So if you notice that you've got hot spots in your cycle, which are creating stress and challenges in your relationship or your work life or your caring roles, and you want to learn how you can track your cycle to create a bit more ease and more balance, then we look forward to sharing this conversation with you. Okay, thanks. And thank you again, Natalie.
Thanks.